Hello there, Hippykillerz here for another Who Made the Attitude Era vid. But before I get started on that, of course, Captain Lou Albano just passed away. I think it was yesterday, I'm not completely sure. It was in the past 2 days. And it really does hurt me, really, because I'm a big fan of wrestling managers, and Captain Lou was always entertaining to me. He managed, like, it was over like 10 tag teams to the tag championship, if I'm correct on that. He managed the World Samoans, the US Express, George the Animal Steel. He managed some great ones, really. Always entertaining. Of course, he was Super Mario as well. He was in Cyndi Lauper's music video. He would definitely be missed in the wrestling business because he was really like the first crossover wrestler, really, into like mainstream, in my opinion. Before Hulk Hogan and The Rock and all that, there was Captain Lou, because he was Super Mario and Cyndi Lauper and everything. So, Captain Lou will be sorely missed in the wrestling business. And my thoughts go out to his family, and Captain Lou, you made me happy. That's all I can say. But on to the video. Who Made the Attitude Era, Volume 2? A bit of a controversial one, this one. Not someone you would think that would make the Attitude Era, but I think the Four Horsemen. The Four Horsemen. Now, yes, the Four Horsemen were around in the Attitude Era of wrestling, but I'm going back way before when they first were established, when it was Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, Ole Anderson, and JJ. Now, yeah, I say they helped make the Attitude Era because they were the first wrestling faction, the first proper wrestling faction. In the 80s, you would have sort of factions like you got Jimmy Hart's crew over here, and the Heenan family over here, and Mr. Fuji's camp up here, and what have you. Gary Hart, I believe, had some in WCW. But Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen, they had like similar gimmicks. So put them together, you got the first proper wrestling faction. You had Ric Flair, who was the showboat, he was the world champion, he was the leader of the group. You had Arn and Ole, who were the tag team, the brawlers of the group, who eventually, and Arn, perhaps one of the greatest wrestlers never to hold the world title, in my opinion. Ole, I'm not a big fan on, but he was okay. He fitted into the group. And of course, there's Tully Blanchard, who was sort of Ric Flair, but at the same time not. So they all had similar gimmicks. And of course, JJ was there, like as a Bobby Heenan, as a Jimmy Hart, you know, tricking the referee, distracting the referee, tossing objects to the wrestlers. Now, you're probably asking yourself, what have they got to do with the Attitude Era? They were around the Attitude Era with, like, Mongo and Benoit and Malenko and all that. But what do they have to do with it? It's wrestling factions. If you take a look back at the Attitude Era, a big portion of the Attitude Era was made up of factions. DX, NWO, Nation of Domination, The Job Squad, LWO, who else? The Corporation, the Ministry, the Union, I guess. If you don't know who the Union are, it was Big Show, Test, Mankind, and Shamrock. They weren't around for long. God, who else? The Hart Foundation. How could I forget them? Were there any big factions in ECW? There was that faction, I can't remember the name, but it was Chris Candido, Shane Douglas, and Bam Bam. I can't remember what they were called, but they were a faction in ECW. Oh, and the Dudley Boys. The Dudley Boys were another big faction in ECW. So if you look back, if it weren't for the Four Horsemen, even the Four Horsemen were around in the Attitude Era, so they were a big part. Wrestling factions made the Attitude Era. It's like DX stand out for me, really, because the whole We got Mike Tyson and DX Austin. No, you won't win at WrestleMania, guaranteed. All that. So factions did really help, and of course, what's that with my hair? And of course, it helped elevate guys that you usually wouldn't elevate, like DX. After Shawn Michaels left, Triple H became the leader. You had New Age Outlaws, who were getting a push anyway. They were the tag champs. But X-Pac got the biggest push of his career, I would say. So he was 1, 2, 3 kid that didn't really lead anywhere. He was 6 in, was he 6? Yeah, he was 6 in the NWO. I don't think he did much. And then X-Pac came along. He's getting super over, because of DX. So, even the NWO to some extent, Virgil. Who would think Virgil, of all people, you call him Vincent, whatever you want to call him, Virgil in the NWO, he's getting major airtime. And I can't stand Virgil, but yeah, he was getting a push. But WCW was bonkers, I would say. So, and I think without Flair, Anderson, Blanchard, Dillon, Windham, Luger, and to some extent Sid, I guess, there would be no Attitude Era, because it focused mainly on factions. Of course, there was single stars like Austin and The Rock, but they were something different because nearly everyone else was in a faction. They were part of a group or a tag team or something like that. Whereas Austin, he's going out on his own, and there's actually, I'll take that back about The Rock. He was in factions. He was in the Nation of Corporation. No, that ain't right. Nation of Domination and the Corporation. So they really helped establish The Rock. Triple H wouldn't have gotten over if he weren't for DX, and to some extent the Corporation. Undertaker had a faction. Hogan had a faction. Flair had a faction. Goldberg stood out because he wasn't in a faction. Macho even had a faction at one point, I believe. Macho Madness with the 3 Divas. Molly Holly was in it. Gorgeous George and someone else, I can't remember. Filthy Animals, they were around. Team Canada. So yeah. In my opinion, did the Horsemen help make the Attitude Era? Abso-damn-lutely. New word there. Abso-damn-lutely they did. And, of course, Ric Flair is another person, an entire entity on his own, helped make the Attitude Era, but I'll probably make another video about that. So, wrapping it up, 4 Horsemen did help make the Attitude Era, whether you want to admit it or not, because they made factions. They were the first faction, thus inspiring the NWO and DX. As JR has said many a time, without the 4 Horsemen, there would be no NWO, and there damn sure would be no DX or Evolution. Evolution went in the Attitude Era, but that's the quote. So yeah, wrapping it up, 4 Horsemen helped make the Attitude Era in my opinion. Agree, disagree, put your comments down below, sub if you want, rate, whatever. And Captain Lou will be sorely missed in the wrestling business. So this is Hippykillerz, signing out and drinking tea.